Awesome.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're here for part two of the Good Measure podcast. This is a continuation of our interview with Adam Jacobs. And right now, we're just going to talk a bit about his journey as a sort of physicist to this job that he has now as a HPC engineer at NVIDIA. And so let's get started. And so, Adam, as someone who not recently, sorry, as someone who
Hmm.
joined the tech industry working on open source, sort of high performance scientific software engineering, deployment, DevOps, infrastructure, and automation, and later sort of went to sort of working on deep learning technologies. What are some things that you sort of learned over the years that led you to transfer to where you are now?
Yes, this is a great question, and it kind of gets into something I spend a lot of time, I guess, thinking about and doing. I think a lot about the these career paths, and how you make success happen in different career paths. I don't I don't know that I have the answer. I am pretty happy with where my career's landed, but it did not land where I planned for it to land or expected for it to land. Um, So yeah, as far as I think I'll talk, since in part one we talked a decent amount about kind of the technology. I think I might talk a bit more. I mean, it's related, but I'll talk a bit about kind of like the career path and sort of those sorts of things. How do you strategize about that?
Mm-hmm.
Or just how I approach it that might be useful for people starting out, people interested in either the sciences or technology in software industry. Um, so yeah, I have. Some people might think it's a bit. Sometimes people are surprised, or it's just interesting that I'm a software engineer, a system software engineer at NVIDIA, and they don't expect that I have an astrophysics PhD, or that I did astrophysics research. I have a publication in an astrophysical journal talking about Type 1a supernovae. But the tie-in is that I've always been very computational. My bachelor's degree was in physics and computer science.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was applying to grad schools, when I was an undergrad, I did this research experience with plasma physics. In plasma physics, they tried to, and again, as I mentioned in part one, it's another place where we use fluid dynamics. But anyway, plasma physics has lots of computational aspects to it, and you can do very rich computation with it, and you need to answer some important questions. So that was how I got into sort of like computational physics. And then I
Mm-hmm.
applied to grad school. And like with grad school, there are two stories I can tell. I can tell the story of where, I did this great undergrad research experience at Princeton, and I learned all these fancy things about plasma physics and computational fluid dynamics. And like, oh, I saw Stony Brook and I developed this passion for astronomy, and they have this really great computational astrophysics group. So I applied there, and I got in, and I went and I got my PhD. So that's one story I could tell, which is really great.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I tell that story when I'm trying to market myself to employers or to look good. I can also tell the story of I did a plasma physics
Mm-hmm.
research experience. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I knew that I still liked physics. I still liked computers. Didn't really want to go do an office job. I wanted to keep doing physics if I could. And so I applied to programs, and loads of them rejected me. Didn't get into my top program, didn't get into any of the top plasma programs I was trying to get into. I
Mm-hmm.
I accidentally applied, not accidentally, I applied to Stony Brook by chance. I was looking at all these plasma programs, and I just happened to run into this one. And it wasn't quite plasma, but it was similar. They
Mm-hmm.
accepted me. They were the highest ranked school that accepted me, and they're like one of the most famous schools in the world for nuclear physics, but especially nuclear
Mm-hmm.
physics. But that includes nuclear astrophysics, which was my
Mm-hmm.
background. So anyway, that's I just wanted one just sort of demonstrate how you can the same series of events in your life can have different stories you tell. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we tell ourselves stories. So sometimes I like a lot to look at the bad story. I like to look at the bad things. And so I would just recommend not doing that and understanding that everyone has good and bad things happen in their history. And
Yeah.
you don't, a lot of us are encouraged to think a lot about those bad things and to avoid them. And I found that to be unhelpful. So I don't know. And also it's the technique you can use, like try to look at your story and figure out like, how do you tell it compellingly? I'm thinking especially to an employer, to,
Hmm.
someone that might give you a job, or to a university if you're, writing, a lot of times you have to write research statements or other sort of statements. Try to find that sort of, tell your story honestly, but find how does your story connect to the trajectory of where you're trying to go.
Hmm.
Um, and you don't have to mention all the bad things.
Yeah.
Those can become up in other cases. It's useful. Like people will ask you
Hmm.
things like, "What's a challenge you had?" Um,
Hmm.
but anyway, so I guess the things that I've transferred from that, like that was a lot of career stuff. Some of the stuff I transferred, like, and this might be especially for anyone in the audience that is an academic or even just students. Like a lot of times as a student, you kind of feel like things you're doing maybe aren't pragmatic or aren't relevant to the real world or to a job. And in some ways, that's true. There are a lot of things you don't learn until you get into the job. But like some of the things I learned in academia, and here I include like in doing research, in teaching, things that I use in industry. One, writing. Like
Hmm.
a lot of engineers, they feel that they don't need some of these more humanist type skills, but writing, understanding people, working with people. I write a lot,
Hmm.
not just documentation, but emails. You have to make arguments. Like
Hmm.
if I want something to happen in my team, like right now, I'm an individual contributor, but even managers, this is true of. If you want something to happen, you have to make an argument for it. And a lot of engineers, they can work with Kubernetes or with Python or Rust or whatever, but when it comes time to make an argument, even a technical argument, a lot of people struggle. And so I have a very liberal arts background. And so
Hmm.
a lot of that, I learned a lot of that, both writing, but also
Yeah.
like I had to write grants. So I had to convince the government, the federal government, will you give my university millions of taxpayer dollars to do a project? So like
Hmm.
a lot of that becomes relevant. It plays out differently. Like now I have to convince maybe executives or my boss, or I have to convince customers, or I have to convince, I have different audiences now, but
Yeah.
those skills are super useful.
Hmm.
And also mentoring, um, like you do as an academic, especially as you become more senior, a lot of your job is mentoring students that are coming up and guiding their projects and helping them, both undergrads and grad students and postdocs, which are kind of like these levels of senior.
Hmm.
And so I sort of didn't appreciate it, but like a lot of that is transferred. Like one, just having to work with lots of different people from all sorts of backgrounds, different countries, different parts of America, different languages, but different technical backgrounds, like different skill sets. Um, Being able to work with and mentor those people is super useful. Like I use that all the time. And it's especially important for me with junior people, but for your business as well. Like junior people are what run the company. Like NVIDIA has something like 20,000 employees. We have 23, I think, executives. 23 executives. The executives
Yeah.
aren't making anything happen. It's the work, it's the 10 whatever thousand, 15,000 individual contributors. Like, yes, the executives are important. We need that direction. But um, anyway, the junior people, like you really need to foster them. And yes, they are new, they lack some experience, but I really I find that you learn a lot by just focusing on their experience. And but also it's really valuable within my team. Like I had an intern join recently, and mostly I did not supervise that intern, but I got to help
Hmm.
with that. And I saw how valuable that was to her. And also by receiving mentoring, it really unlocks the potential of juniors. Like
Hmm.
by helping junior people like get, not hold on to some insecurities, or to feel comfortable and safe like contributing, they do contribute. And so
Hmm.
this intern like did some really cool work in our team that we're still working on spreading it out throughout the system, but just did this really great work that we really need. And I also have people that have joined more long term that I've been kind of helping them
Hmm.
join. And establish themselves. And that, I don't know, I found, I guess I like doing it just because I appreciated when people did that for me, but I'm starting to
Yeah.
see like strategically how it helps. Like it really unlocks the potential
Hmm.
for juniors to contribute, and it ends up helping their
Yeah.
career. Like, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. So I
Yeah.
guess those are some of the things that transferred.
Mhm. I actually want to ask a bit about sort of the industry itself. And so you actually went from a physics degree to a job in high performance computing. And so what can you tell us sort of about the transition from going from a degree to an actual job? I mean, as someone who did a PhD dissertation on sort of investigating rich explosive possibilities of Chandrasekhar mass white dwarfs in binary systems, you must have had some experience in sort of going from the degree that you obtained to actually transferring the knowledge into the job that you're now working on.
Yes, I love this question, and I think I have some insights I've learned, or at least some things I wish I had kind of known at that phase. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the sort of advice or suggestions I'm about to give, like they're relevant for people like me who like. So I had a PhD and I'd been doing, I had a full-time research position for it was about 3 or so years by the time I applied to NVIDIA, and I'd had a after that I had this sort of pseudo industry position for half a year. I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But so, I what I do, so this advice is relevant for PhDs, but I think it will also be relevant for people in your audience that are like undergrads or even high school students.
Mm-hmm.
Just so don't think that this only matters for PhDs. But so what a thing I noticed is, so there are various reasons I transitioned out of academia and research and into the private sector. Um, one of which I'd mentioned in the previous part, where like
Mm-hmm.
the challenges I kept facing and the challenges that I felt needed to be solved were not the challenges that you focus on in science and research.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also things like geography, location. I have a wife um, who she's in academia. She's a professor, but and she has she has a job already, full time job, a tenure track job,
Mm-hmm.
or now she has tenure. Before she did not. But anyway, like so I if you're in academia, you really don't get to choose where you work. You just apply, and
Mm-hmm.
whoever hires you, people move across the globe, or they just move all over the United States. If you're a U.S.
Yeah.
person, move all over Europe, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I transitioned, and it's a hard transition. I don't want to. It is hard, even if you have a PhD, even if you have experience, even if you like. I was a good fit for the job I applied for. For a lot of jobs I applied for, a lot of them I didn't get. Um, so it is hard making that transition from I have a degree, I have some relevant experience, but I have not had an industry job yet. That's a very tough position to be in. And I work with people in that position a lot,
Mm-hmm.
including people with PhDs, with masters or bachelors. Um, it changes, like, yes, having a master's or a PhD, I think that helps a bit. Like it does. It opens a few more
Mm-hmm.
doors. But it's still a challenge. People with PhDs, including physics PhDs, they apply for positions at NVIDIA or AWS or anywhere else, and
Yeah.
they get rejected. So it's not a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that transition is hard. I got some help. So there is, I would say, used to be this program, this fellowship called the Insight Data Science Fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
So it was this fellowship program that was run by this sort of startup tech company called Insight Data Science. And what they did was they did these roughly 2 month fellowships, and the people that did the fellowships they came from academia, but some of them also came from industry. And the whole point was it's this focused fellowship where you do a real project that is relevant to industry. So you
Mm-hmm.
do that project, you deliver it, you do that roughly in a month. So it's a very tightly scoped project, but you do a real project with relevant technologies that industry cares about. That's about a month, and then you spend about a month um, applying to a bunch of companies that Insight partnered with, like
Mm-hmm.
applying to get jobs there.
Yeah.
But also learning as you're applying, you're also learning about here's everything, here are all the like secrets that the tech HR
Mm-hmm.
departments, this is how they think, this is what they're looking for. this is what the tech job market in different areas is like. You learn all that, or we
Yeah.
learned a lot of it, not all of it. We learned a lot of it. That fellowship has changed a lot for the worse, I think. But when I did it, it was very good. One good part about it was I didn't pay for anything. Now you have to, now it's pretty expensive. But anyway, what I got from that, a lot of that experience was very valuable. I couldn't have afforded it. I couldn't have done it if I had to pay for it, and now people have to pay for it. But I learned a lot in that, and so I did pick up some industry stuff. But like honestly, I don't know. I don't know that I needed the fellowship to pick all of it up. And the job I ended up getting was not a partner company. Like I got the job on my own, Inside Data Science. They didn't partner with NVIDIA. They didn't have any relationships with NVIDIA. That was me. I got that. Inside did not, they did not help me get a job. Well, they did, but not with one of their partner companies.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. That's just individual, whatever stuff. The point is that it's relevant in the sense that I got some insight into the sausage making of getting a job in tech. And I have a lot of direct experience with making the transition from I have a relative tech or a relative science degree into I'm working in industry.
Yeah.
And so that is the hard part, that getting that first industry job, what you do there is you establish yourself in the labor market. So once you've established yourself, you're kind of done. Like I have NVIDIA on my resume now, AWS, Tesla, startups. Everyone sends me requests they invite me to apply all the time. Once you break into the industry, once someone has paid you real money to do real things and you've delivered real results, especially if you've done it for about a year and no one fired you, once you do that, it's a lot easier to move around.
Yeah.
So like that's an important thing to understand, especially if you're trying to break in. I'm weird. I sort of broke in at a company that's a lot of people's dream company. But when you're trying to break in, it's okay to have a dream company or just a workplace that works the way you like. If you don't get it at first, you're not done. It's okay. Like maybe you get a job you don't like. Maybe you get a job at a company that treats you not great. Don't we have to make compromises, but you can do that. Get the skills, get the resume, be a good worker. But if they don't start treating you right, take those skills and work your way somewhere else. That can be done. And if the place you're applying to, if the reason you're giving for why I want to move is because you can give good reasons and it will look fine. So that's kind of some of the advice I give is just understanding that, and also another important thing for candidates to know is you're going to get letters like, we regret to inform you, like we had a lot of candidates and your skills just didn't match up or your experience just wasn't the level we needed. That is very frequently a lie. That is just boilerplate. There are lots of reasons companies do this, but just understand that when you get rejected, like if you can get feedback, try to, especially from the hiring manager or from technical people that talk to you or from the HR partner, like that's valuable. A lot of times they won't give you feedback, but if you can, try to get some and try to learn from it. But I really want people to understand rejections. They're not personal, and often they're not based on merit. It's not because of your experience. It's not because you couldn't do the job. Sometimes it is, but I know for a fact both it's happened to me and I've seen it on the other side happen to others. People don't get the offer and they're made to feel the reason they didn't get it is experience or because they're not cut out for the job. That is almost never the case. That is almost never the case. There's so many things that go on. There's just lots of things going on in the background, which we could talk about it another time, or we can discuss more. But I just want people to know that, like, learn from it and just keep going. Like when I applied to NVIDIA, I sent my application off. I was like, all right, done. I was in the middle of a process with AWS. So I was like, okay, what's next there? Who's the next place? I immediately just think next and try not to invest too much in one place. It's a lot to balance, but that was an important thing that I had to learn. And so other than that, I mean, I think unfortunately LinkedIn can be useful and important. And especially try to do a lot of peer networking. A lot of people try
Mm-hmm.
to network to, seniors, which is useful, do that, but
Mm-hmm.
senior people tend to be busy and, you know, when you network with your peers, like, because sometimes your peers, they know people in senior, so it ends up working that way. But your peers they're learning a lot and y'all share out
Mm-hmm.
things very fast. So I think it's really valuable to kind of learn from your peers. Um, yeah, so I guess in trying to break in, you kind of just, I don't really know the answer other than you just keep trying until you get
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah.
And then once you get there, I don't want to say it becomes easy, but it becomes easier.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for so much great insight. Are there any last things that you really want to add or you would really like to just talk about? We have a couple of extra minutes. If you want to plug anything, say something to the audience, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. I mean, I do again just want to really thank you for inviting me, and I really like this podcast. It's really well run. I really enjoyed the questions. Um, yeah, so I mean, I've mentioned LinkedIn a bit. I'm on LinkedIn, and as I understand, I can share my profile in the show notes. I love especially to connect with and I love to work with more junior people, and I like to talk about kind of career. I talk about nerdy things too. I'll mention Linux and stuff, but if you're not into
Mm-hmm.
that, you can ignore it.
Yeah.
But I like to. It's one of the things I talk just because I did have that experience with Insight, and I learned a lot of things. Like it is challenging to make it in this industry, but a lot of the challenges are not the ones that we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to try to help people see what the real challenges are, and also to understand what's really happening in the job market,
Yeah.
because a lot of that stuff is kind of opaque.
Mm-hmm.
So you can. I welcome people to follow me there. You can follow me if you want to connect. I welcome that. I do not connect with people I don't know or recognize. So if you connect, if people leave a little note saying why, I usually do accept it, just
Mm-hmm.
because then I understand the relevance. I understand why. Or you can just follow me. I'm publicly, my profile's public, so you can just follow. Um, Another thing I guess I would say, especially sort of uh, along this career advice theme. Um, I've talked about some of the sausage making of, like, the job search and trying to find positions. One thing I really do want to also emphasize, and this was said to me, I mentioned in the previous, or I mentioned before, I did this plasma physics research experience as an undergraduate. And when I
Mm-hmm.
did that, one of my supervisors was a man named Dr. John Finn, and he
Mm-hmm.
worked at, I think he worked at Los Alamos. I think he was a scientist at Los Alamos National Lab. He might still be, actually, I don't know. But he told me, like, he said something along the lines of, like, if you're going to do this, like, you got to love it. Like,
Yeah.
the accolades, whatever, and, they're few and far between in academia, but, there are famous professors, say you win it all. You're a professor at Harvard and you get a Nobel Prize. Like, that won't be enough for you. That's not enough. Like, you have to love it. You have to want to do it. So I do want to say, like, especially in tech, a lot of people are drawn to tech because, the salaries can be very high. You can make a very good living in tech, and that is a very understandable reason to want to do something. And if that's your reason, that's great. Like, figure it out, do it. But to sustain yourself, especially at the very deep engineering levels,
Mm-hmm.
this work is absolutely miserable if you don't love it. Like,
Yeah.
I get message of my systems go down. I have to figure it out. I'm having to figure out Grace Hopper while still having to support, you know, uh, what were they? The Volta generator. I'm having to support
Mm-hmm.
technology that's like 5 years old while having to add new features for technology that's not even public yet. Like,
Yeah.
it's a mess, and you have to really love it. I have to love thinking about Linux. I read about Linux. I I love it, So, and whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, like, it could be deep learning. If you love deep
Yeah.
learning, the algorithms, the performance, just find the part you love and make sure there is some passion there, right? In tech, we
Mm-hmm.
talk a lot about passion, and sometimes we use that in ways I don't like. Like, passion won't fuel you. Like, passion can't be the only reason you do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you need work-life balance. The job
Yeah.
can't be everything, but there needs to be something in there you like. It can't, if the only reason you're doing, especially engineering, is money, like you will fail, just because that's
Mhm.
not enough.
Yeah.
Money's not enough to motivate anyone to spend 10 hours debugging a distributed
Mhm.
Linux system. At least I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
So find some passion, and also when you have that passion, that your career, it just goes up, because if it's real, it comes out in interviews. It comes out everywhere. And if you're
Mhm.
passionate, like I mean, sometimes I annoy people because I am passionate, and I'll see something we're doing in our systems, and I'll be like, no, like you're supposed to design it this way. Like, and
Yeah.
I care about it. I care about that performance. And so
Yeah.
I keep pushing. And then other people in my team like, no, 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 we have to do it for this reason. And they're right. We do have to handle that. And so then I learn, I'm like, okay, how do we move this towards having a better design, which I have good reasons for, while still supporting like the day to day.
Mhm.
So yeah, that passion, it's really important. And it can be hard, you, especially because if you're passionate about writing or art, things like that, follow that as well. And there are less positions, but you can do that in NVIDIA. We have artists in NVIDIA. We love art, especially like 3D art. But yeah, that's important. Passion, you need it for whatever your career path is. You got to find it.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This was an awesome interview. I
Oh,
had a great time.
me
And
too.
yeah, as I said, thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
Yeah, likewise. Have a great day.